Hi, I'm Dan McDonald. I am a software engineer at Nexenta Systems. I'm actually going to talk outside the scope of my day job today to talk about Illumos on the small scale. The Illumos Home Data Center, which is, here we go. So quickly recap Illumos. Most everybody here knows what that entails. Some people online might not. Just to remember, what comes to mind when you think about Illumos immediately? You think about dtrace, you think about Crossbow, something we haven't seen a lot in the commercial side of Illumos right now, except for, in deployments, but nobody's been pushing that up to the front and center. Zones, obviously. In particular, any zone, pretty much all zones these days have their own TCP/IP stacks in them, but the original zones didn't, and that was something a lot of some customers complained about. The other interesting subset of zones is the ability to loopback mount file systems or subsets of file systems from the global zone into specific zones. And of course the UFS. And people are using these to solve real problems and make real money off of it. And there are other problems we can solve. Let's talk about something, a concept that was introduced in 2009 LISA by the Crossbow team, Sine, Nicholas, Kais, and I can't remember who Kari is, but they made a presentation about tiny network machines, virtual network machines, where you can take a unique stack zone, combine it with a virtualized NIC, and a virtualized network attachment point, which are referred to in the appropriate commands as ether stubs. And pretty much you can turn a zone into any network device you'd like. A NAT box, a router, a firewall, the classic security gateway if you like reading the pedantic language of the IPsec RFCs. And basically you start off with what looks like an ordinary network diagram. I'm using red and black in their network security color semantics. And I use blue when it straddles the world. So you start off with pretty much something that looks like one machine and a bunch of internals, and then it goes and collapses into one machine that serves multiple functions. Zones, quickly recap, they are lightweight virtual machines. They share the kernel. They instantiate certain parts of the kernel per stack, per zone, including the network stack. This is the most interesting part of this in my case. They're cheap. They're really cheap. Couple $100K tops, maybe more if you've got a lot of stuff inside a zone. And you can also take a subset of the global zones file system. When you see the deployments I have, this will make sense. And if one does need a full virtual machine, Joinint has completely shown you the way how to do that. You can just run KVM as the zone's boot process. And that's what they talk about, defense in depth, the double-hulled virtual machine, call it what you will, but that's the way you do it. So considering a home or even a small business, pardon the density of the text here, today a home will have a NAT box. It's often provided by the person who's your ISP for your house, and I don't trust those things as far as I can throw them. Sometimes you'll have a Wi-Fi box, could be combined with the NAT. The one I got from my ISP does both. Again, it just is brick right now. Sometimes a home, especially a small business, will also have a NAS box attached there. And the problem with the NAT boxes that you get from your ISP, or just go down to Fry's or Circuit City's out of business, Fry's or Best Buy or Micro Center to get, is that they are often a down rev Linux. These vendors just take what they have and run with it. And the provided ones, especially by the ISPs, often will have open TCP/IP ports for customer service. It's very interesting when I talk to Verizon, my ISP, when they clearly have a network problem, and the first thing they notice is that my router is offline. Yeah. Sorry, boys. Go ahead, ping it. Yeah, can you ping it? Okay, that's good. No, you can't ping it. Can you ping it? I have to spend 10 minutes educating the people that I'm not using their equipment. Buffer bloat. I mention it and I don't go into it a lot here. This is a problem I wish we had more people in the Illumos community working on. A lot of network performance problems in the internet today are because of devices, most often these home NAT boxes, that have too much buffering in them, and so they artificially inflate round trip times or otherwise deliver duplicate packets when they really don't need to. The cellular networks in particular they're getting better, but they have also suffered a lot of buffer bloat because the phone company mindset is, oh my God, we can't drop anything. And it's more along the lines of, this is TCP, the endpoints will take care of it, calm down, carry on. But it's hard to get telephone people to understand networking. It's a classic challenge. It still exists to this very day. Now, when you get into non-trivial NAS boxes, which we'll gladly sell you, so don't get it, but we'll sell them a lot cheaper than the other real vendors who ask for real money. And non-trivial VPNs are the same way. Have you seen a Cisco license? Anybody here in the audience? Have you? And a lot of small businesses will even have an on-site web server, whether it's customer facing or just a little, hi, here's our location, how do you get there? So yeah, that's a lot of boxes. And if you do some fancy schmancy 3-tiered web architecture, you might have attachment points for your web farm all over the place. You will have a file server, you will have other internal nodes, you'll of course have your router, your firewall, and your NAT box, and you have the big bad internet attached to it all. Now, let's make it one box. This box is exactly what I have at my house. Anybody with a browser in the audience can go visit kebe.com, K-E-B-E.com, and you're gonna go to one of these all-in-one boxes. Breaking down the zones, the global zone contains file services. One other thing that we should fix longer term in Illumos is that most file services are not instantiable inside a zone right now. They were working on it for NFS inside Oracle, but that wasn't finished before they closed the barn door. Put that in the same category as Ike v2. You might not want your global zone to have a default route and access the big bad internet. Mine, the one I'm going to talk about more on the next slide, does not have a default route, except when I need to update the software. Then I add it, do the update, and delete it. And it can provide over other network services if it is going to pull things from the big internet. You can also have other zones provide those network services too. The router zone will, in my case, does perform NAT and possibly firewall services. Very important to have your port redirections set up here properly if you're going to run other services that face the internet. You want to make sure that your router zone does it right. You can also use it to extend your home network to other physical, or your small business network to other physical locations using existing technology we have already in Illumos. And the web server zone, it's pretty much like it says on the net. And if the global routing is not, if your global zone for some reason is not attached to the internet, the web server zone can often act as the relay for internet services into your internal network. And it can inherit even read-only file systems from the global zone. So if you want to update your web page, you just attach to your NAS box, change the files, and suddenly, boom, they're there. For example, let me do something here. How many of you remember this? Touch typist. Guess we'll get back to that in a bit.
I knew that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just very weird. Oh, I know what happened. We'll have to wait a little bit. Okay. But yes. This is, if anybody visited kebe.com, like I said earlier, I use loopback mounts for global zone subsets, so I have external in my home directory there, which becomes just export home DMCD in the web server zone. And with a symbolic link on the global zone, public HTML, we got an easy way to edit what is on the web server. My global zone has no default route, and it uses some modicum additionally of IPsec policy. When I turn on my guest Wi-Fi unit, I don't want people just NFSing into the global server without at least trying a little. And the web server zone on mine serves as a home DNS relay, and it just takes things from other servers and points them in caches. Another thing I'd like to explore at some point is additional caching, especially if the box services a large number of nodes. The router zone also serves as a remote access server, which I was trying to do earlier, and it also serves as a DHCP server for my house because it knows the entire network topology. Another example with a slightly larger scope is what we have in Nexenta's Lowell, Massachusetts office. I got a hand-me-down freebie from my daughter's soccer coach with 4 network ports on it. It's loud, but it was free. And that was one less piece of equipment we had to ship from California. So I put it together as all-purpose network services. I actually have 2 routing zones, the traditional NAT box, and I also have a real internet router zone on here, which I'll explain in the next slide. We don't have the web server up yet. We will. It's going to end up being called playground.nexenta.com or something like that. Someplace we can put stuff. And we also have a couple of boxes we'd like to have community have access to. They're Spark boxes, and I need to create a DMZ for that. But the internet zone I have, we actually have a /28 allocated to us in Lowell, and so the router zone is just a dumb packet forwarder. /28 on one side, the 1/30, again, there's more Cisco for you, /30 up to Comcast, and all it does is forward packets. Do not anthropomorphize the zone. It just forwards packets. And there are no services on it. Don't need any. I access it through the global zone inside, and so you can go attack it all you'd like, and there's nothing there except for ping. Eventually I'm going to put in a DMZ where you can SSH into that or SSH through it to get to the console of some of these community machines we have sitting in the lab, and because we've been doing our day jobs and real work, we haven't had time to set them up yet. I think we'd rather be doing our day jobs than not. Bill, you can tell everybody that too, next executive meeting. We also have inter-office connectivity via IPsec from the classic router zone back to Nexenta's Santa Clara headquarters, which opens up a vast number of our test machines to us just so we can get our jobs done, quite frankly. And again, so many functions and so little hardware, you should be able to do this on a very tiny box. I mean, at most you need 2 network interfaces thanks to vNix, and it isn't a big CPU hog to do this unless you are lucky enough to have multiple gigabits of Ethernet in your house or at your small business. You might someday, let's be fair, but right now I don't see anybody going over a gigabit, so we just run with that. You can have a single point of failure this way with one machine. On the other hand, if they're cheap, you could probably have one you can hot swap in at a moment's notice. All of the Illumos capabilities we have can cover almost everything we need out of such a box today, except for one that came to mind, the ability to act as a Wi-Fi base station. Now, I've heard that they had this working in Sun somewhere. I'm in Massachusetts, so I didn't get to hang out in California every day for my last several years at Sun, but I heard somebody in hardware and somebody in networking had gotten together and made this happen. Unfortunately, it never saw the light of day because Oracle only cares about multi-million-dollar businesses, and they don't care about sharing either, even the stuff they don't use. We have lots of home and small businesses out there that run these little Linux boxes right now, and they're addressing the problems. The buffer bloat has gotten a lot of attention from the Linux community. That's why I wish we had some people with time in the Illumos community to help out to see if the Illumos TCP IP stack, in particular the driver layers, Nemo, the generic LAN driver, might be accidentally queuing packets more than it needs to. A lot of these devices are ARM or Atom. Why couldn't they run Illumos? I mean, that's an interesting question. So there's lots of potential future work here, for anybody with cycles or some venture capital. There's some things that are missing in Illumos. The Ike daemon Illumos is closed source. Yes, I know it, but I can't edit or modify it. There was Ike v2 that started open source and then Oracle closed it up. I know that they are in code review right now for Solaris 11 update, something or another. After that, they might be available, people who are hiring. Getting base station Wi-Fi support would be another interesting problem to solve, to help the small and home business, small business and home usage of Illumos. And if you want to scale this up to, I don't know, say a data center, there's a piece of technology out there right now. You folks in the audience have heard of Nicira, Nicira. They were recently bought by VMware. They were the first commercial deployment of a technology called OpenFlow, which is software-defined networking. Basically, at its heart, it's a language for telling an arbitrary packet switch what to do based on what fields match, et cetera, and you can program this. So if you have an arbitrary rack of systems and you're deployed for one customer one day, and then suddenly that customer upgrades and buys the 2-rack amount of stuff you have, then you can reconfigure the 1 rack using OpenFlow to network for maybe 2 or 3 very small customers, and so on and so forth. There is an outfit, we've been kind of waving our hands around companies that might be using Illumos, but we aren't sure yet. I will name one of them, Pluribus Networks. They have a page. Sinatra Pathy was the project lead for Crossbow. He's the CTO of this company, and apparently they are doing OpenFlow, and I'm guessing they're doing OpenFlow on top of Illumos, because every so often, if you have a TCP/IP change, you will get code reviewed by one of Pluribus's engineers.
They may be here this evening for the Solaris reunion party.
Sweet. Good. Deidre, if you couldn't hear it, for people online, said that Pluribus might be here for the Solaris family reunion this evening, so we can bug them about it then. And then the ARM support is an interesting question. I know that was a standing project in the Open Solaris community, and now it's back, something to think about for Illumos. ARM v8 is probably the most fascinating part, because ZFS runs okay under 32-bit systems, but it does so much 64-bit arithmetic that really you want to have a 64-bit processor and 64-bit registers. So ARM v8 is probably in my opinion, that would be the interesting place to start for an Illumos ARM port. So wrapping up, I would recommend to people that Illumos has a perfectly functioning TCP/IP stack that can do packet forwarding and other things, and use it. And you can maximize all of your hardware using zones. People know that already for the most part. That's where Joint makes hay. That's where Delphix runs on top of virtualized instances as well. And a small box can do big jobs with the right software and the right configuration. And I do have a demo that I'm going to try again. And I'm going to try running the demo first before I go to questions and answers. How are we doing on time, Deidre?
You have 7 minutes.
Good. Should be enough time to try this again. I have a past sentence. Nope. Yeah, that's only 3 words. There's a lot more. Yeah.
It's full of stars?
What?
It's full of stars?
No, I'm not saying anything. It's definitely not that, though.
You're the only one with the client though, so it won't be that.
Yeah. Unless you have Kiwi.com's public key too. So yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, we're dropping packets. Let's try that again. One more time. I should have done this before. so sorry. Because there's one other thing I had too. There's an additional zone on my home server whose sole purpose in life is to be connected to the Nexenta Lowell office. I mean, basically, it's just there. It's just there to connect to the Nexenta Lowell office, which is nice if I need to update web revs on kiwi.com from work. Okay, yeah, this is symptomatic of terrible, terrible packet drops. So, anyway, I'll take a couple of questions now. I'll try one more time after some questions, if anybody in the audience has any. Oh, there's. I'm not sure how to take that. Okay. Nope. Yeah, go ahead.
So, what's the amount of importance that you would put on something like ECC memory for your all-in-one?
I actually have ECC memory on mine. I will tell you, I had a mixed ECC, non-ECC configuration for a couple of months, and it was okay as long as I didn't do anything like build Illumos gate. Then I noticed it. And that was enough for me to rip out the non-ECC ones and go get ECC memory. So yeah, pretty darn important. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think about VirtualBox? How well does it work with Illumos in general? We're doing something similar to this, but I don't.
I have VirtualBox on, I'm SSH'd into my laptop here, which runs Open Indiana, and I use VirtualBox for some test machines. There's one I/O problem that means you can't build a Illumos gate inside a VBox virtual machine. I have no idea what the bug is. I know there's some in the audience who are like, oh, VirtualBox is a steaming pile, which may or may not be true. But we also have other VM solutions available with KVM, and that runs on SmartOS. I think I'm pretty sure it runs on Open Indiana. I think it even runs on OmniOS now. So there you go, from the man himself. So I'm not particularly concerned about VirtualBox one way or the other. I mean, user interfaces I think is the only thing it offers these days of any significance. One more time. Come on. It should be giving me a little spinning thing. This is not good. Well, I'll try again. I'll try again later when I just have my OI box right there ready to go. The fact that it's not spinning, yeah. All right. Yeah, that. I'm sorry I can't give the demo. It's pretty cool to see it, and I will try and bring it up this afternoon, and maybe I can show it off at the. Do we have a booth out there by any chance, Bill?
We got a table.
We got a table.
That is a booth.
Yeah. So I will be at the Nexenta table later. If I get it up and running, I'll be more than happy to show off to anybody who's interested. Thank you, Deidre, for letting me borrow the Mac. The slide decks and /temp, it's all yours. You can do with it as you please.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.